Hi. Okay, I've separated the double point lesson from the circular lesson because it's a long lesson. And let's talk about what we've done and what we're going to do. We've gone ahead and done the cuff, which is a ribbing, and then we've added 1/2 an inch to connect them, and we have finished the flat part of our sock, which is the heel flap, and you can see there it is. So now, and we've gone ahead and done the turning of the heel, and that's the little round part right here. So I want you to congratulate yourself because that's the hardest part of the sock. So the next thing we're going to do is we have these two flat sides of our heel flap, and we are going to pick up stitches along each of those sides. And then after we do that, we're going to go ahead and start to make this little piece. I don't know if you can see that if we're close enough. This little piece is where we decrease at the top every time. So I'm going to walk you through that, and then we will start knitting in the round. All right, let's look at what we have here. So again, you can see we have our heel flap, and our stitches on the side of our heel flap are a little bit bigger than a regular stitch because we've slipped the first stitch of each row, both purl and knit. And then we have turned our heel, which you really should congratulate yourself. That's part of the hardest part of doing socks. The rest of it's just kind of going around in a circle. So what we're getting ready to do is pick up those stitches, but we need to go ahead and knit across here. So let's go ahead and get that knit across, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to separate our needles so that we have a beginning round. So I'm going to go ahead and slip that first one, and then I'm going to knit across all of these heel stitches where we turned them, and I'm counting as I go. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start picking up in each of these places. Oh, hang on just a minute. I got my yarn. There we go. So you can use a crochet hook, you can use another needle, or you can use this same needle that you're knitting with, and I'm going to use the same needle that I'm knitting with. So when you look at this stitch, the yarn is coming out of here. So we don't want to go in here and pick up another piece of yarn. We're not going to do that. But what we are going to do is if you come back to the other leg, not the leg that the yarn's going through, but the other leg of that stitch, you can pick up your stitch right there and then put it on your needle. Now, sometimes people will twist those first stitches, and you're welcome to do that. And mine is twisted. So we have one stitch on there. Each of these larger stitches that you can see, that's going to be where you're going to pick up, and I go through both legs of a stitch to pick up. That's 2. So if you hold it kind of like you're crocheting, it's a little bit easier. So there's the next stitch. I'm going to go through both of those legs, grab my yarn, and I'm twisting mine, so you'll probably see that it looks a little twisted, which is okay. So I'm going to go ahead. If you've watched this with our double points, this will make it just a little bit easier for those of you who are doing the circulars. Circular skill is just a little bit different than double points or even regular needles. So that's why I'm doing both lessons. So then we go ahead and keep picking up. And keep picking up. Now you're getting quite a few stitches on here, and we do want to center this. Let me show you the double points. When we do double points, it's just a little bit easier because right in the middle of our heel flap is where we make our break between our needles, and then up at the top, so that we have 12 stitches on each needle. And we're going to kind of do the same thing with this. And you're welcome to separate it, or you're welcome not to, but we are going to have to separate it at 2 points at some point. So I'm going to go ahead and do it now before I get too many stitches on this needle. And I know that I had 14 stitches across my heel, so I'm going to take 2, 4, 6, 7. 7 off of my heel, and I'm going to pull my cable. Actually, I'm going to push. I don't want to pull the wrong needle. I'm going to push my cable through there. There we go. Now that's going to be one break. And then I am going to put 12 of these stitches and make a break. So let's go ahead and keep adding our pickup stitches right here. Now I've gotten to the smaller stitches, which means that I didn't slip this. This is part of when I was knitting around, so I'm going to pick that up also. And then I'm going to find the next stitch below it, and I'm going to pick up that stitch also. Okay, so that's all on that side. That's where we've picked up. So I'm going to go ahead and work 12 stitches on this needle, and it's a little bit tight, but that's okay. I think you can do it. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Before we go any further, remember I cast on 48 stitches, which that means mine divides into 4 times 12, so that's 8. If you've done 40 stitches, you'll only want to do 10. 9, 10, 11, 12. And so basically what I've done is I've separated these top stitches, and I should have 12 stitches on this one. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. You're welcome, if before you start knitting, to find out how many you have and then divide it in half. So what I will do then is I will go ahead and pull this. I don't want it to completely close this loop because that's the middle of my heel. Okay? And so then I'm going to knit across these next 12 stitches and keep them separate. Because we're doing magic loop, you have to have 2 pieces of cable, kind of like I do now. So we want to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, we are at the end of that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to pick up stitches along this side. And in order to do that, we look at our stitches. Now these are our larger stitches. These are the ones we've slipped. This is a smaller stitch. And the way you can tell is this yarn coming out of this stitch is one of the last stitches that you knit. So I actually want to come down here. I hope you can see this is the line, and I'm going to come to the stitch below that. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just do your best. So I'm going to pull my stitch and I'm going to twist it before I put it on there. And then I'm going to go to the next stitch up, and I'm going to grab that stitch and twist it. Okay, there we go. Now, you can use your needle if you like, and I'm going to go down through those big stitches, and you can see I pick up both legs of the stitch. I go under both legs of the stitch to pick up. It's just a little bit tricky. If you like to use a crochet needle, that's perfectly fine. That's actually easier for some people to use their crochet hook and catch these. As you get knitting, you'll start to you won't want to look for a crochet hook, so you'll kind of start using your knitting needle as a crochet hook almost. That one got a little caught. And I want to split my stitches. I'm trying very hard not to split my stitches. There we go. And then I get to where my other needle is. And, oops, I dropped that one. So then I'm going to go ahead and push that through, and then we're going to knit those stitches that are from our turning of our heel. And once we get to the end, then I'm going to go ahead and fix my my little hair. So again, we still have what we call the magic loop. Now, depending on how many stitches you've cast on, you want to have half of those stitches on each needle. So I cast on 48. I want to have 24, and I'm going to show you I don't have 24 now because I've picked up extra stitches here. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 2, 4, 6, 7. I actually have 7 extra stitches that I'm going to have to decrease, and I'm going to show you how we do that. So when you look at your sock right now, you have the top stitches and you have your heel turned. You have added all of these right here, and you might want to go ahead and take some of your stitch markers and mark. And you'll have to be very careful. See, this stitch is coming down, and this stitch is actually where we have added. And you could have done this before we started adding these stitches, but I'm going to put mine right here. There's one right there. And I don't have another one, so I'm going to use some yarn. You can use yarn to make stitch markers. It's kind of cool. If you're out and about and you forgot to bring your stitch markers, you just take them, tie it in a little knot, and then once I get over here to this side, then I'm going to go ahead and I will know. So I want to count back 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And I didn't put my stitch marker in the right place. And this is actually the easiest way to know where to put your stitch marker. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And I will do the same thing. Oh, I do have a stitch marker. Let me grab that. I love these little stitch markers that click open. So then we're going to take it on the other side, because we know we put half on one side and half on the other. So we're going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and I will put my stitch marker after the 12th stitch. So that's going to help us to know where we're going to decrease. So 3 stitches before our marker, we're going to do a decrease, and let me show you how we do that. I'm going to knit up to 3 stitches before the marker. I'm going very slow. I don't fast forward through my knitting because some of you are knitting along with me, and if you're a brand new knitter, you might be a little bit slower than if I speed these up. So I'm just knitting through with you. And those of you who are a little more advanced, just bear with us because you were a new knitter one time too. And it does get a little bit tight because of all the extra stitches we have on here from adding our heel flap. Okay, I should be nope, not quite. 1, 2. But I do maintain my magic loop. And that's the easiest way to knit with circular needles, is to maintain a magic loop. Okay, I did 1 stitch too many. I'm going to put 1 back. So I have 3 stitches before my stitch marker. I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together. Oops, and I want my yarn in the back. So I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together and then knit the next one. Now, slip your stitch marker because you're going to need that quite a bit. And then just go ahead and knit to the end of your needle where your magic loop is. And this number will never change. The top number will never change. This is going to start changing. We are going to go down. So the first row on both sides, we decrease. On the right side of your sock, you do knit 2 together. And on the left side of your heel, you'll do a slip slip. So I'm going to go ahead and knit through these 12 stitches. These 12 stitches will stay the same. And then once I get to my stitch marker, I'm going to slip that. So let's go ahead and do that together. I'm going to pull this just a little bit closer because my arms get tired laying on the table. Well, this one stays the same. This is the top of your stitches. And I have 12 of them. You might have 10. You might have, oh, what's the other one? 18. Okay, I'm at my stitch marker. So what I want to do is I want to slip that stitch marker. I'm going to need this stitch marker throughout until we're finished decreasing. I knit 1 past my slip marker. Don't do that. There we go. And then I'm going to slip slip on this side. And then again, I'm going to knit down to my magic loop. Now, we're only going to decrease every other row. Every other row gets decreased, and then the next row we just knit through. And I'm almost at my magic loop. Now, let me tell you a few little tricks you can do. I don't usually use another stitch marker in between my magic loop, because invariably what I've found is when I go to knit again, I've lost it. It's fallen off somewhere and I've lost it. But what you can do, let me get a different color here. What you can do is so that if you ever lose the integrity of your loop, if you accidentally pull it too hard, you can actually go ahead and put a stitch marker right in between there. And every once in a while you might want to move it. And this will help you to keep the integrity on the double point needles so that you know exactly where you are in your knitting. And I'm going to put one up here at the top. So I've gone ahead and I have 2 just for integrity, and they're between stitches. And as I knit, I can still follow it up because I know how to read my stitches. And you do too, because we've done lessons on that. Okay, let's go ahead, and this next row we are going to knit in a circle until we get back down to our heel. Now I'm going to pause this because that's going to be very boring. We're just going to knit the whole way around. Slip these white stitch markers wherever you have a stitch marker like my white ones. Slip those. Don't worry about these ones in between. Those we're just going to stay in the fabric. We don't have to slip those. So I'm going to pause this and I'll meet you back here once I get that entire row knit, and you can join me. Go ahead and pause this. Okay, we're back. So what you see is I did not slip this one, this stitch marker, but I do slip these at the sides. This is just to keep the integrity of my magic loop. I will tell you this is a 24-inch cable. Usually when I knit socks with a heel flap and then turning the heel, I like to have at least, and just doing one sock, I like to have at least a 32-inch cable. This is a little bit tight for me. I like to have a lot of cable so that I know I'm keeping my magic loop intact. If I do 2 socks at a time, I prefer a 40-inch cable, which is pretty long, especially if I'm doing these. I do have another heel that we're going to work on later where you don't need the 40-inch, even if you are doing 2 socks at a time. Okay, so I have decreased one row, and then I've just knit around one row. So I'm going to do one more row of decrease with you and explain to you how you can make sure you're not decreasing too many stitches. But let's go ahead and do this decrease. Circulars are just a little bit different than working on the double points. I don't prefer either one. I like both. So it's up to you if you want to do double points or circulars. I really like both of them. Okay, so I am knitting all of these stitches, and I will stop 3 stitches from my white stitch marker. And if you're using yarn, sometimes if you use different colored yarns, that helps also. Different colored stitch markers, different color yarns, whatever you're using. Okay, so I am 3 stitches from my stitch marker. There's my stitch marker. So I'm going to knit these 2 together again, and I'm going to knit 1. Now, let me show you the easiest way to know if you are on a stitch that you need to do single or double is just look at this. When you look, oh, do I have a needle? Yeah, there we go. When you look, and it's actually easier as you're knitting to see if you have a single stitch coming out of here, or with this one, these 2 legs are actually pulled together almost into a V at the top. And so I've already done my decrease on this side. So if you have to stop in the middle of your knitting and start again, sometimes you'll forget, unless you make tick marks. You can always make tick marks on a piece of paper or use one of our stitch counters to take control of how many stitches, which row you're on, a decrease or a regular knit. And so I'm going to go around, and remember, you are only decreasing every other row. And then we're going to talk about how many decreases we are doing. Now notice I'm not slipping this. This is actually caught into the material, and I did that on purpose. Okay, let's go ahead and knit across these stitches, and then we will slip our stitch marker before we do our decrease on this end. On the right side, we knit to 3 stitches before our stitch marker, and on the left side of our sock, we actually slip the white stitch marker before we do our decreases. So let me show you one more time. Okay, so I'm at the stitch marker. So these stitches are actually the top. And then we slip our marker, and we are again at our heel flap. And this is where we do our decrease. We knit 1 stitch plain, and then on the left side, this side, we will do a slip, slip, and then knit those 2 together. And then again, we just go ahead and knit to the bottom. Of our heel flap where we have turned our heel. And then we will discuss how we decide how many we have to decrease. Now, if you have cast on 48 stitches like I have, and you have two sides of your sock, you will have half stitches on each side. You'll have 24 on this side and you'll have 24 on this side. Now, you already know that you have 24 stitches above for the top of your sock. 24 stitches right here. And you will want to have 24 stitches from your stitch markers around. So you can actually start counting from here. And the other thing you can do is you can make sure that you have, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So on this side I'm going to decrease 4 stitches. So every time I do a just plain knit around, I count. I just count to see what I have. And on this side, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And on this side I have 5 stitches. So on this side I will want to knit 2 together, 1 extra time. Make sure that you keep your integrity. Just like here we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. On this side we will want to have 12 from our red marker to our white marker. We'll want to have 12 stitches. And so we will keep decreasing on this side until we have 12 stitches. And on this side we will do the same thing. Remember, you are only decreasing every other round, and then the middle round you are knitting through. So we've done a decrease round here. We're going to do a knit around. I'm going to show you that on the sock that we've already done with double point needles. What happens is you have what we call a gusset that will be created. And you can see your stitches going straight up and down here, but these stitches are coming here, and then you are deleting at the top so that it becomes like a triangle. And that's how you get the shape of your sock, so that where your ankle is, it comes down to your foot, and then we will start knitting this way. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. Go ahead and do your decreases. Once you've finished all of your decreases, then we're going to go ahead and talk about how long to make your sock before you start your toe area. So enjoy doing your knitting, and next week we'll go ahead and work on our foot part. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.